Am I the a-hole for getting a paternity test on my son who doesn't look like me? I'm a 29-year-old white man, and my wife is 30 and black. We have 2 children, a 3-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. My wife got pregnant with our son early in our relationship. We had only been together for a year when we got married because she was pregnant. Fortunately, we are genuinely happy. When my son was born, I accepted him as mine, but I couldn't help noticing how little he resembled me. He is noticeably darker than my wife and doesn't look half white at all. My family and friends repeatedly asked if I was sure he was mine. I had doubts, but initially chose to trust my wife. I loved my son regardless. When our son was 2, my wife had our daughter. I had no doubt she was mine. She looks just like me, even having my blue eyes. I never realized how powerful it is to know a child is yours. I bonded with her more easily because there wasn't the question of paternity hovering over us. My family bonded with her quicker, too. Her resemblance to me convinced me that my son was not mine. I tried to always treat them equally as I see them both as my kids, but I realized I was beginning to resent my son. It felt unfair that I had to care for someone else's child. I also began to resent my wife because I felt she had betrayed me. I eventually got a paternity test in secret. I was relieved to learn that my son is indeed mine. Genetics are odd. That was 4 months ago, and my relationship with my wife and son has improved greatly. I feel much closer to him now that I know he's mine. My wife and I have been so happy that we were discussing having a 3rd child. I confessed to my wife that I got a paternity test. I hated keeping the secret and thought she would understand given how much he doesn't look like me. She flipped out. She asked me if I ever doubted our daughter, and when I said no, she called me racist. It's not true. I didn't prefer my daughter because of her whiter features. I just knew she was mine. She also mentioned that I caused our son to feel unloved without any justification for all those years. I responded, that's not true. Even when I doubted my son was mine, I treated him as if he were. My wife expressed her desire to move out and take our children after the quarantine. It has been approximately a week and a half, and I'm still on the couch. I hope she would have calmed down by now, but things remain the same. She is extremely angry with me for not believing her, and in her view for rejecting my son because he is dark-skinned. She hardly speaks to me unless it concerns the kids. I don't want to lose my family. Now we will move towards the next story. Here's where I turn to you, Reddit. Is it so terrible that I had doubts? I still cared for him. I don't understand why something like this is destroying my marriage. I believe she is overreacting. So am I the a-hole. After being harshly criticized on my first post, I never intended to log into this account again. However, some recent developments have convinced me to update you all on what has been happening. Let me get to it. Currently, my wife and I are separated. I moved out so she and the kids could stay in our home. I'm staying with my parents. I don't get to see my kids as frequently as I would like to. Once I have a more stable living situation, we will have joint custody of them. It has been incredibly challenging for me and the kids. I talk to them on the phone every night and they keep asking when I'm coming home. It breaks my heart that I can't answer that question. My daughter is struggling the most. I feel terrible that her life has been turned upside down by her own parents. I miss my family. I miss seeing my kids every day. I miss my wife. Our relationship is in limbo for now. She says she needs space to process and isn't sure if she can forgive me. I've apologized in every way I can think of. At this point, I just have to give her the space she needs and hope she calms down. It would be devastating for us to throw away everything we've built. If separating has been this hard on the kids, divorce is going to devastate them. She seems open to attending couples counseling, which gives me some optimism that we can overcome this. Regarding Reddit, I admit I didn't want to hold myself accountable before. I couldn't see how my actions were subconsciously harmful to my son. It was never my intention to be racist, but I did treat my son differently due to his skin tone. When you strip it down to its roots, I realized how badly I messed up. I felt embarrassed thinking my wife has probably told her family why we separated. They used to think very highly of me. Now they probably think I'm a racist. I have no one to blame but myself. With all the craziness going on in the world, I know that I need to be more aware of my actions. My kids deserve to have their family be a safe haven from racism. It frightens me thinking about the type of world I will send them out into where they could be racially profiled in many places. I can't imagine if it were my son on the news instead of one of those other unfortunate guys. I'll never let anything get in the way of my relationship with him again. Thanks all. Am I the a-hole for walking out on a double date my friend set up with him, his girlfriend, and a girl I had already rejected before? To give you some background, I, 25M, met Jane, 24F, through Joe's girlfriend at her birthday party last year. Initially, Jane was enjoyable to talk to, but before an hour had passed, she became extremely into me and tried very hard to hit on me. This ruined my time there as I was not interested and was already in a relationship. My first impression of Jane was that she was clingy, annoying, and wouldn't stop bothering me. Unfortunately, Jane became part of my larger friend group because she is part of Joe's girlfriend's friend group. Since Joe and I hang out a lot, and I am also friends with his girlfriend, I end up running into Jane at least twice a month. The first time Jane asked me out was a month after that party. I informed her that I was with someone and not interested. She tried again 2 months later when I had broken up with my then girlfriend, but again I declined her advances and told her I was not interested. I got into a new relationship not long after, but unfortunately we broke up about 2 months ago. Since then, Jane has asked me out again, and I said no once more. Well, that brings us to this week. Everything has been opening up here, and Joe has been trying to set me up with a friend of his girlfriend, but he would not tell me who it was. Well aware of me having rejected Jane multiple times and the fact I am not interested in her, he knows this in detail. After much of what he terms convincing and I refer to as whining, I had no interest in dating anytime soon. I finally relented and agreed to this double date notion of his. We settled on meeting at Joe's apartment, and to my surprise, Joe, his girlfriend, and Jane were already seated at the dinner table, clearly planning for my date to be Jane. I honestly became so furious that I couldn't even utter a single word. I turned around and left. I have been flooded with texts and calls about how much of a douchey I am and how terribly I hurt Jane. I'm just like, I literally rejected her 3 times. I am not interested in her. You knew that. Your girlfriend knew that. Our entire social circle has a running joke about obsessive Jane, so literally everyone knows it. It turns out that some of the more pessimistic of you were right. Jane was being obsessive and stalker-like. About a week after I posted, she decided to message me. It boiled down to her not understanding why I was showing interest in her and then refused to date her. I never showed interest in her beyond basic friendliness. Her message was a wall of text devoted to trashing my previous relationships and calling them all sorts of names. Specifically, she pointed out how I dated the wrong girls and had a strange rant about how everyone agreed we were meant to be, which just isn't the case. There is a running joke in our friend group about how weird she is. Now you might think this is something to be expected, but she sent it from the wrong account. I had become internet friends with someone in the past month or two. We would play games together and chat from time to time. It turns out she had actually used this alias to infiltrate my internet friend group and monitor me in some way. This freaked me out. I took screenshots of what she had sent me and then blocked all accounts I now knew she was using. I followed that by sharing everything in our friend Discord and WhatsApp group so everyone could see, which resulted in her being removed from both. I later got a call from Joe, who was completely apologetic. He admitted he shouldn't have done it and explained that his girlfriend had been pressured by Jane. Jane had been nagging her for months to arrange something like this, and she finally gave in. I told Joe that I needed some time because he really messed me over big time and I didn't trust him anymore because of this. While Jane has been shunned by all friends, she still contacted me twice, once to apologize, which quickly turned into a weird conversation where she started talking about us and seemed convinced there was an us and that I am interested, and another time just to curse at me, both from random accounts. I am not sure where to go from here and am still pretty shaken up. Now we will move towards the next story. Am I the a-hole for considering a professional babysitter for my child? I have a daughter who is approximately 1 year old. Her name is Allison. Her father and I both have full-time jobs. I work between 35 and 40 hours a week, and he works anywhere from 40 to 45 hours. Both of us have morning shifts. My friends Tom, 23M, and Skylar, 24F, had volunteered to look after Allison for us, as Tom worked remotely and Allison isn't known to cry very often. Initially, everything was going smoothly. Tom would place Allison in a separate baby-proofed room where she could play with her toys while he worked. Then Skylar would take over when she returned home. We offered to pay multiple times, but they consistently declined. Additionally, Skylar would request that we bring Allison over if it had been a while since we asked for their help with babysitting. Eventually, we agreed to let them have Allison 3 days a week, but they made us promise not to offer payment anymore. It worked out well for a while. However, Allison started coming home with rashes from unchanged diapers. She'd be extremely fussy and hungry by the time we returned home. We discussed this with Tom and Skylar and asked them to be more attentive to her diapers. At the very least, her thrashing and screaming because the diaper ointment hurt was heartbreaking every time, especially since I knew it was preventable. They would agree, but eventually revert back to their old ways. Recently, they have begun fabricating excuses to get out of our arrangement, claiming to be out of town for the week, only for us to see them on Snapchat at home with their pets, saying they were ill but our mutual friends would still be hanging out, and claiming they wouldn't be home all week for work when Tom works strictly from home. His job doesn't even have a central office. Without informing them, we enrolled Allison in a professional daycare service. I drop her off in the morning and her dad picks her up. Word got to Skylar and Tom, and now they're relentlessly calling us, labeling us as evil, shifty, and rude for not informing them that they wouldn't be taking care of Allison anymore. They're also accusing me of betraying their trust by not discussing my concerns with them. Am I the a-hole for finding a daycare for Allison? When asked why they would offer to watch Allison for free, they mentioned it was because Allison was a delight to be around and that they had no issue doing a favor for their friends. They felt that accepting payment was inappropriate for something they volunteered and wanted to do. When asked about Allison being kept in a separate room all day, we were led to believe that Tom would be interacting with her quite often. He mentioned that his job is very slow-paced and that during the 4 hours he would be working while watching her, he would have a 1-hour lunch break and a 15-minute break. Plus, he would be with her until he received a notification from his computer. Regarding the visits, we haven't seen them in 3 weeks, so they haven't been around Allison, and I don't expect that to change. I have this uneasy feeling in my gut, and I can't tell if it's guilt or instinct. We had been discussing possible overnight stays once a week due to the late pickup and early drop-off times, 6 and demise a.m. to 8 FOS p.m., because of our work schedules and commutes, and I'm just relieved I never agreed to it. My husband and I are going to call Allison's pediatrician tomorrow morning. I have this unsettling feeling, and with every traumatic diaper change, it intensifies. I'm hoping that everyone's dark suspicions are wrong, but I can't shake this feeling. Our pediatrician is available for an emergency appointment with us today. Thankfully, we're in the waiting room now. If Allison's pediatrician wasn't available, we would have gone straight to a nearby urgent care. I am not ready to provide too many specifics yet, but we have been advised by Allison's pediatrician to initiate an investigation against Tom and Skylar for what I initially thought was a diaper rash. It was actually burns, which would explain how it manifested so severely in the span of 1 day and why it didn't seem to be mending. Allison won't be attending daycare tomorrow. She will stay by my side. My boss is allowing me to remain home with her throughout this entire process. If a further update is needed in the future, I will provide one, but I can't at this moment. I lack the mental capacity. Thank you, everyone, for reassuring me I made the right decision and recommending medical counsel. I feel like an awful mom for not doing so sooner, but I will set that aside for now to focus on my daughter. I want to begin by expressing my deepest thanks for everyone's kind words and advice. It's been an utterly chaotic week since I posted, and I can't imagine how things would be if I hadn't heeded the advice from everyone here. As I mentioned in the previous update, I followed the advice of the comments and took Allison to her pediatrician for an emergency appointment. I initially thought it was a severe diaper rash she came home with 4 weeks ago, and last week discovered it was chemical burns. Following that update, both my pediatrician and all of you urged me to involve the police. I didn't need to be told twice. Tom and Skylar are under police investigation for what they did to Allison. I don't have much information yet, but I was informed that Tom and Skylar stand no chance of winning the case. Tom was apparently unemployed the entire time, and his job was running a website he and Skylar created documenting what they were doing with Allison and 2 other children. The website has already been taken down, and the other parents are also being investigated due to evidence of consent. A detective also informed me that Tom and Skylar had confessed to their actions. I haven't been told what those actions were, but my husband knows, and he has mentioned that Tom and Skylar were fortunate the police found them first. They have handed over the items that were used. I was informed that the burns probably came from a lubricant that Tom and Skylar employed. I didn't ask why they had it, and I'm hoping it was meant as a Desitin replacement. Probably naive of me. Allison is still at home with me and my husband, and we are considering various therapy options. We are also contemplating moving back to where our families reside, or my brother moving in with us to help us stay connected to reality again. My mother-in-law has already reserved a hotel nearby and is with us every day to make sure Allison knows she is safe and loved. I wish she could talk and understand that we won't let anything happen to her again, but for now I will settle on holding her when she needs me and rubbing her back when she goes to sleep. Life will not be the same moving forward for a while, and I know that I am just beyond thankful that I posted and everyone here was able to highlight the red flags and concerns so that I could make the right choice for my daughter. I was blinded by 15 years of friendship and couldn't grasp that they had intentionally hurt my baby girl. I see that now and will forever carry that with me, as it was a failure on my part to protect my daughter. The rose-colored glasses are off now. Thank you to everyone here for helping me and my family. It's been a long time since I've even thought of Reddit, I'll admit, but I logged on today and saw a slew of messages from people asking how I was doing and how Allison was doing. It's a lot. I also had some notifications from Reddit giving me numbers for a crisis line, which shows that even some quieter folks were concerned. I appreciate every single one of you who messaged me. For everyone curious, Allison is improving. Her therapy, 3 sessions a week for now, is benefiting her greatly. She eagerly awaits her therapist's visit, and they get along splendidly. Because of her age, they're utilizing play therapy. I'm not a medical professional, so it seems odd to me, but my little girl is beginning to act like herself again. Diaper changes remain a challenge, but our pediatrician is assisting us in attempting early potty training so that Allison doesn't have to relive her trauma. We're not there yet, but it's probably too early to say. My husband and I are receiving therapy as well. There's a lot of guilt about not noticing the signs that our therapist claims is misplaced. I'm not entirely convinced of that yet, but therapy likely takes time. I still feel like I should have known and that I've let my kid down, but I'm making progress. Tom and Skylar have their sentencing next week. My lawyer suggests they'll probably be incarcerated for a long time. Allison will likely have finished college before they're released. The longer they stay locked up and endure the consequences of what they did to my daughter and those other 2 kids, the more content I am. We've already relocated to a different city. We considered moving out of state, but Allison loves her therapist, so we moved as far as we could while still keeping the same therapist for Allison. Coincidentally, it's closer to where the therapist lives, so she has a shorter commute. I don't think I'll provide any more updates, but I just wanted to let you all know we are going to be okay. Allison is already showing progress, and my husband and I are working through it. A few people mentioned that I should have been more aware or that I was terrible for accepting my ex-friend's offer initially, and I agree, but I'm not going to let it dominate my